Jim Justin Stone here with EliteBaseball.tv, and your tip of the week this week is a story. I know we have a lot of listeners that are coaching teams themselves, or maybe just coaching your son or daughter, and I'm going to tell one of those classic horror stories of youth baseball, one of the most incredible things I've ever heard at the very lowest level of play, a T-ball story. And I'm sure you all have your own stories and horror stories of youth baseball yourself, but this one really stood out to me as one of the most incredible things I've ever heard in organized baseball. It starts out with a 5 and 6-year-old league. This one happens to be in California. The team is coached by one of my former teammates who is also a pro player. In fact, both of these T-ball coaches for this particular team are former professional baseball players. So think about that. Your son or daughter beginning their baseball careers, and they have ex-professional players that are their coaches. That's something that we don't get the opportunity to have very often. So you know they're in pretty good hands. But this league had been having issues because it was supposed to be T for the first 2 innings of the game, and the final inning, if both coaches agreed, they could do coach pitch. However, what we have been seeing is that the coaches ahead of the game would say, no, we're just going to do coach pitch the entire time, because they thought the T was too elementary for these 5 and 6-year-old players. My friend, again, being an ex-baseball player, talked before the game and said, hey, just so you know, we're going to use the T the first 2 innings, and we're doing coach pitch the 3rd inning, as the league rules have stated. And the league had been sitting this out over and over again, saying that this is what we want you to do. So what ends up happening is the opposing coach says, T, we haven't used a T the entire year. And rather than getting a philosophical discussion on why the T should be used, basically the coach went into a dialogue saying that the T is too elementary for these players. They can all hit a coach pitch. This is what they should be doing. Now think about that for a minute. Now I'm going to take a step aside from this story just for a minute and remind you that I've worked at a lot of different levels of baseball myself. And I've had the luxury of being able to see the best professionals prepare, as well as teaching our youngest players to learn correct fundamentals in the game. And across the spectrum, the T is used. If a big league player starts their routine every day when they get to the park at 2 or 3 o'clock with the T, it's probably good enough for our 5 or 6-year-olds. But for some reason, when we get out of T-ball, we feel like, well, the T is just for those 5 and 6-year-olds, so once we progress to coach pitch, then the T is really a bad thing, and that's not the case at all. In this particular league, the T was being used to put more balls into play quickly, keep the defense more active, because we know there's so much standing around in youth baseball, let alone T-ball. So after an argument, they decided they were going to use the T for those 2 innings. And as the T started to go, or the first team started to come up to bat, they were knocking the T down over and over again. And now the coach from the sidelines is chirping and saying, we'd already have 3 batters done if we'd been just going coach pitch, because they can put balls in play. What are we using this silly T for? But he was using other words. So my friend, he didn't say much. He just continued to progress through the inning. And finally, a ball gets put in play, and it smacks the second baseman right in the forehead off of a bad hop. Now, mind you, in T-ball, we're supposed to be using safety balls. And these balls are the same weight as a baseball. As you know, a lot of times they're softer. So as they go in and they treat the player, he was crying, of course. He had a big bump on his head, and they had to take him out of the game. The coach leans over, picks up the ball, and finds it's a league ball. It's a hard ball. So not only did the coach not want to use the T, but the coach was trying to get an advantage by using a hard ball when they should have been using a T-ball. At this point, my friend, the coach, says, hey, what are we using the league balls for out here? This is a hard ball. You know we're supposed to be using T-balls. And the opposing coach runs onto the field, pokes him in the chest, and says, we can settle this in a parking lot. That's the short version of that part of the story. It went on for a little while longer. So now we have somebody that's too good to pick up and hit off of a tee. We want to use hard balls instead of safety balls when we're in T-ball. And now we're trying to pick fights out of the field. This is the complete antithesis of what youth sports should be. Coaches that are making it about them, coaches that are trying to really progress past the system of what we're trying to do in teaching players to enjoy the game and come back year after year. Not to mention that this coach was probably going to be chosen the coach of their 5 and 6-year-old all-stars. So that's the last piece of it. Like, how in the world are you picking 5 and 6-year-old all-stars in a league? And my buddy joked, well, this is why California has all the first-round draft picks. And I said, no, it's not. It's not the reason at all. Right? So I hear this from, we do some work over in hockey and in Canada hockey. But if baseball is getting to the point where I've seen 7-year-old travel teams, which blows my mind, 5- and 6-year-old all-star teams, what are we really doing here? What are we doing? Are we teaching the game? Or are we bolstering somebody's chest and ego that's a parent that wants to say, my kid is better than yours? Think about that for a minute. What are our reasons for being in the game at the youngest level? We feel like in elite baseball training that T-ball is misstructured all the way around. It doesn't put the kids in the first organized situation of baseball that they've ever been in and puts them in the most boring setting possible. We feel like, let's make it 5-on-5 home run derby. Let's make it more like a pickup game where kids have to be more active in the field. We can use the tee, and we're trying to encourage players to hit the ball in the air farther. There's a lot of different ways we can do that there. But that's a sidebar for the conversation today. So next time, and I know you have stories like this yourself, you think about what are we doing with our youngest athletes and preparing them to have fun in the game, enjoy the game, continue in our game, and hey, get better. Realize it has very little to do with you as the parent or coach and everything to do with the psyche, emotional development of the player,